Both Telltale's The Walking Dead and Last of Us have been compared to one another since their releases in 2012 and 2013. Though the games play completely differently, there are two big things the games have in common: zombies and adoptive fathers who meet amazing young girls who basically become their daughters. Lee Everett and Joel Miller are very different characters, right down to the fundamentals, but have the blessing of being father figures to two very special girls. Both games have made me cry before, and that's saying a lot because Last of Us made me cry at the beginning of the game. Both games represent the beauty and trials and tribulations of raising a daughter in such a twisted world, and well, I want to put these dads to the test. Hey, it's Nana Plays Games, aka MPG. Happy Father's Day! For this special day, we'll be focusing on Lee and Joel's relationship with Ellie and Clementine and how their actions impact said relationships. They may be different, but they're still both imperfect people, and this is represented very well in their games. I'm sure this question's been asked before, but between the two, who's the best dad? For this game, we'll be analyzing one dad, then the other, and then we compare the two. If you're down for that, let's finally get started. We're gonna start by talking about Lee Everett, but first, game overview. Season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead, named after the hit AMC show, follows Lee Everett, a recently convicted felon on his way to prison. Too bad some people didn't learn never take your eyes off the road and things go to hell. Quickly. The game is introduced as a point-and-click, choice-based game with tons of characters to meet, talk to, and potentially kill. People loved it for putting them directly in the shoes of someone living in a newly ruined world and interacting with this world as they saw fit. Interacting with characters was the highlight of the game, and there are still so many people gushing about it, including me. As I said before, Lee was on his way to prison, but somehow, against all odds, his incarceration led him to Clementine. This is what I call fate. Throughout the game, you get to see Clementine and Lee's relationship grow, but it should be noted that they're joined at the hip almost immediately after meeting each other. Lee is shaped by the player, but still feels like a real person even with the player basically driving the car, so to speak. This makes his relationship with Clementine feel even more intimate and special. You, the player, feel and fully understand the love he has for her. Just like a real father, he makes sure she's cared for, fed, and happy, or as happy as she can be. He even teaches her how to shoot a gun, which in the Apocalypse is the equivalent to teaching a child how to ride a bike. Every conversation the two have is not only natural, but usually ends with both of the characters seeming a lot better as people. It almost seems like their confidant rank went up. Their relationship may not be very complex, it's actually very simple and straightforward, but like any relationship, it has its ups and downs. Even while hurt or scared, his priority is always to ensure her safety. Even the small things, such as giving her her hat back, shows how much he loves her and knows her. Almost every decision he makes is with her safety and benefit in mind. When Clementine ends up kidnapped, he goes through absolute hell to find her. This includes traveling a city filled to the brim with zombies, fighting in a horde of zombies in said city, and against all odds, killing the stranger despite the clear disadvantage he's at. And he does all this while infected and actively dying. To him, it's not a question of if he'll get Clementine back, but when. He takes all the anxiety, grief, and possibly guilt he feels and channels it into a strong determination to save her. He's on death's door, and despite how frankly horrible he looks, his concern is making sure he can't hurt her when he turns. And even after all of that, he acts like it's no big thing. His unwavering dedication to Clementine kinda makes you forget that he was a killer before it was something that he had to do to survive. The reason why Lee goes to prison is from killing a state senator who was having an affair with his wife in a fight. In one conversation with the stranger who kidnapped Clementine, he explains that he wanted a family, but his wife was always away and their marriage wasn't great. I think this frustration of staying with her despite not feeling fulfilled and her selfishly taking what she wanted without thinking of how he'd feel is probably what drove him to react as violently as he did. I don't think he killed the senator on purpose, but I do think the rage of wasting his life with someone who couldn't or wouldn't give him what he desperately wanted caused him to take the confrontation a little too far. This, I think, fuels his desire to take care of Clementine. Some may say it's selfish, but he takes on the role of taking care of her and protecting her without expecting anything back. Despite meeting Clementine being an opportunity to get what he always wanted, it never felt that way. He's a great dad, and though he was only able to be one for a few short months, his impact would be remembered by Clementine forever. I'd say that's more than enough. So let's get to talking about the next dad. Last of Us is an action-adventure game that follows Joel Miller as he navigates a world that's been screwed for the last 20 years. The game is more survival than its horror, with the player being able to craft weapons and fight to their heart's content. Joel is currently living in a shitty safe area with his partner Tess when they're approached by Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies. She offers them an immense amount of weaponry and other supplies if they smuggle Ellie, a girl with an immunity to infection, to a specific destination so a cure can be made. The game may not have you interacting with characters the same way as in The Walking Dead, but it's just as story-driven. I'm only talking about Joel and Ellie's relationship in The Last of Us 1 because, if you know, you know. But I won't neglect to mention some things that go down in Last of Us 2. Unlike Lee and Clementine, the relationship between Ellie and Joel is more of a slow burn because they don't like each other at first. It's a representation of the cruel, violent world they live in. I mean, I sure as hell wouldn't be too friendly if I had to punch people to death or survive getting chased by clickers. Joel is bitter, angry, and just like everyone else, surviving just for the sake of it. Even so, Joel is an asshole to Ellie, but it kinda balances out because she's kinda annoying. They bicker, argue, and piss each other off so much it genuinely feels like they'll never like each other. But as the game continues, the story does as well, and certain events and encounters cause the two to become closer. Ellie saves Joel's life, he starts to respect her. Ellie acts like her goofy, unserious self, he starts to like her more. Joel almost kicks the bucket, Ellie takes care of him, and this solidifies their bond. These two have one of the best dynamics I've seen in a game ever. They play off of each other very well, and it's very push and pull if that makes sense. Every step they take forward, they take steps back. Their circumstances are not ideal, and like I said, they argue quite a lot. When Joel is afraid of getting attached to Ellie, he delegates the responsibility to finish transporting her to his brother. After all they've been through, this hurts Ellie a lot, and despite the drama fest, the two still stick together. And like I mentioned, every positive comes with a negative in the relationship, but this honestly creates stakes and realism. Relationships are not perfect, and though Joel and Ellie's definitely is not, you can't deny how much he cares about her. When she gets taken by David, he tortures someone for information on where she is. Not only is he badass, but just like a dad, he doesn't play around about his daughter. He also goes and murders an entire hospital full of soldiers just to keep her alive despite there being a chance for a cure to be made. It's something anyone would do, and something I'm willing to bet any dad would do. He goes against all logic and reason to protect what he loves, and makes a decision that doesn't even seem like one to him. It's natural to him. Unlike Lee, Joel was actually a father before the apocalypse. He already knows what it's like to love someone so much that he gladly put their life before his own, and how much it hurts to lose them. His daughter dies the very first day the world goes to hell, the night directly after his birthday no less. Losing a child destroys any parent, and in Joel's case, losing Sarah meant losing any wholesome reason to continue living. That is, until Ellie comes into his life. From what I've seen, Ellie and Sarah both mimic each other's spunk. I imagine that if Sarah had survived a few more birthdays, she'd be a little more like Ellie. I think this may be what endears Ellie to Joel. Maybe not initially, but she does grow on him. He even carries her out of the hospital just like he carried Sarah on the first day of the apocalypse. Contrary to Lee, Joel's decisions are his and his alone. When he does something messed up, it's his choice and the player has no control over it. This is also the case for when he does something kind. Joel starts the game, or at least the current events of the game, stoic, bitter, and cold. Ellie breaks through the ice that is placed around his heart and gives him a reason to stay alive other than instinct. She gives him something new to protect and love for probably the first time in 20 years. Despite all the heartache, pain, and grief he suffered, he realizes that pushing away those he cares about is not the way to live. She teaches him to let himself love her and be happy. They go from annoying each other to father and daughter, and the development of their relationship feels very natural. He does nice, thoughtful things for her, ensures her happiness, and even after their inevitable falling out, continues to watch over her. They've been through absolute hell together, and it only strengthened their bond well beyond that of Smuggler and the Smuggled. He's an amazing father figure to her, and despite how their relationship ended, it makes me smile every time I play the game or watch someone else play. I've done this about 1,000,000 times, so that in itself is shocking. Now, let's move on to comparing Lee and Joel. To me, Lee and Joel are as different as night and day, but they're way more similar than you think. They both find love in the most dire and hopeless of situations and put their lives on the line to protect their daughters. Both of them also protect Clementine and Ellie from predators who may use them for their own gain. Even in the face of what some may call reason, both men would rather act on their love for their daughters than logic. For example, Lee is pretty pissed when Vernon volunteers to take Clementine off his hands. He's angry at the idea of Clementine not being in his care anymore, but he never argues why or if he's the better caretaker. Rather, he, depending on your choices, gets pretty angry, understandably so. Joel chooses to kill most of the soldiers and the only people who can make a cure to keep Ellie alive and in his care. This, while understandable, is not at all a rational decision. You can say that both Lee and Joel will act like parents in these situations, overcome with rage when faced with the idea that Clementine and Ellie won't be with them anymore. Even so, there's something a little deeper that causes the two characters to almost mirror each other. I missed talking about a huge part of Joel's character for this very moment. To start, Lee is comforting, kind, and a great mentor, but like Joel, he does lie. These lies are not at all the same, but are lies nonetheless. For context, Lee knows for a fact that Clementine's parents are dead, but this is something he never tells her. Lee technically doesn't lie and say to Clementine that her parents are alive, but he never tells her the truth. He chooses to spare her feelings instead of having an uncomfortable, sad conversation with her. This inevitably costs him his life. Despite how good of a person Lee is, he's flawed. It is his choice to hide the truth from Clementine, and not only does his inaction hurt her, but it kills him. This is what I love about him. He's not perfect, and no father is. In a way, he just wanted to spare her, keep her shielded from the true horror of the world they lived in. I imagine that him finding out his parents were dead only fueled his desire to prevent her from feeling the same pain. Joel didn't need to do this, nor is it the reason he lied to Ellie, but it's still as, if not more, complex. Remember when I said Joel killed an entire hospital filled with soldiers? Well, when Ellie wakes up, he lies to her and says that a cure wasn't possible. Joel lies to protect himself, but I do think he sees that telling the truth to Ellie would hurt her immensely, considering that he knew she only thought she held value as long as she could provide a cure. It's something he does that, despite all the horrible things he does in the game, is among the worst. In a way, you can see that Joel's actions at the hospital also cost him his life. So, in the end, neither Lee or Joel are perfect and made mistakes as they went about raising Clementine and Ellie. As for who's the better father, that's up to you. Did you think I was going to give a definite answer to this question? Well, I don't have one, so with all the info I laid out for you, let me know who you think is the best dad. But with that said, it's time to move on to the bonus round. Let's have some fun with some cool dad-oriented questions. Question number 1, who's the better cook? Lee seems more homely, but he's still a college professor, and if you've been to college before, you know how much they work. I still think he's a half-decent cook though. Before the apocalypse, Joel is rarely home, so he probably couldn't cook worth a damn. For some reason, I feel like even after the outbreak occurred, this didn't change, so I think Lee wins this one. Question 2, who would you want at your soccer game? This is actually a really cool question because both Clementine and Sarah have played soccer before. That totally wasn't on purpose, by the way. Lee, I feel, is more academically inclined and probably doesn't have much experience with sports outside of maybe watching them. So I don't think he'd be the best person to have at a soccer game. Like I said, Sarah has played soccer and there's even a picture of her and Joel after one of her games. Judging by how he has the experience of having a child play sports, this one is gonna have to go to him. Question 3, who would you bring a prom date home to? In season 4 of The Walking Dead, Lee talks to Clementine in one of her dreams, so maybe take this with a grain of salt, but he seems supportive if she's currently dating someone. I don't think he'd have an issue with her bringing someone home, though I feel like he'd be the embarrassing type. Joel, on the other hand, is kind of similar in this regard. Joel originally thinks that Ellie has a crush on Jesse, but is still supportive when he finds out that Ellie and Dina are romantically involved. Still, I think he'd be pretty scary to come across for the first time, so I think this one will have to go to Lee. Question 4, who's more active in their child's life? I don't know, I feel like both of them can use some work on that front. Question 5, who's better at helping with homework? Well, Lee is a professor, so I'm sure he'd be great at helping with homework. Joel, on the other hand, is always busy with work, though that doesn't mean he's not a present father. Even so, I got my money on Lee. Question 6, who's more likely to teach you how to change a spare? Lee is handy and is able to achieve a lot in his game, but he doesn't know absolutely everything. Joel was a carpenter before the apocalypse, and even though the profession has nothing to do with cars, I think he'd be more handy. Question 7, what dad would you rather have in a my dad can beat up your dad scenario? The zombies in The Walking Dead are a lot tamer and easier to deal with than in The Last of Us. The world of Last of Us requires survivors to be at their physical peak or at least super resourceful. So this one is definitely gonna have to go to Joel, I punch people to death for funsies, Miller. If you counted that as me ranking the characters, both Lee and Joel got 3 points, so it's a tie. And that's it for the bonus round. Let's play again later. Both Lee and Joel are two characters I've compared in my head again and again for years, and I wanted to finally get my thoughts out there. Again, let me know who you think the best dad is. Make sure to like and subscribe too. This is MPG, it's been real. Peace!